This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle Academy, where filmmakers and screenwriters go to learn from top Hollywood industry professionals. Learn more at ifhacademy.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Ben Sharrock. Man, how you doing, Ben?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. You are coming to us from the other side of the pond, as I always like to say, in Edinburgh.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Nice and rainy and miserable here at the moment.
And here in LA, it's perfect, as it always is. But we have wildfires, earthquakes. So it balances out in the nature.
Yeah.
We've got our stuff.
Yeah, we just get a bit of light drizzle.
Yes, exactly. You get a little God spitting on you is basically what it is. Just a little bit, not too much. But man, listen, thank you for being on the show. We wanted to bring you on to talk about your new film Limbo. But I also want to kind of dive into how you got started in your journey as a filmmaker. So how did you get into the business?
I took a sort of interesting route in, which is a little bit related to how I ended up making Limbo as well. But I basically started off with a degree in Arabic and politics. And then in my final year of that, I started specializing in Middle Eastern cinema. And that was really when I kind of made the decision that I wanted to be a film director. I think it would also, I should probably say that kind of when I was growing up as a teenager, I did a lot of theater, youth theater, and I actually grew up wanting to be an actor. And then that's kind of like disappeared as I went to university. But then, when I kind of started discovering all of these kind of, amazing Middle Eastern, Iranian films, it just kind of changed my idea of what cinema could be. So I decided to go to film school, made my kind of first short film directly after like my final year exams. I managed to get in. And then I basically spent a year at film school. After that, I got a job in Dubai working in advertising on the agency side. And then I was in Dubai for a year. But I kind of, I knew that I wanted to make films. I wanted to make feature films. I didn't want to be a commercials director. So I ended up getting a scholarship to come back to Scotland and do a Master of Fine Arts. And then basically directly after that, I made my kind of first, my debut feature film, which was, very low budget, pretty much zero budget, self-funded film, which was made entirely in the Basque language, which is from the Basque country in the north of Spain.
Sure.
And then basically that film It premiered at San Sebastian Film Festival and then just kind of went on this big journey. And I ended up, kind of traveling around the world on the festival circuit, and it, did pretty well. And then that kind of launched me into the getting the funding to write the screenplay for Limbo.
Now, I have to ask you, because I have friends from Dubai. Is it true that it is hotter than literally hell there? Like your shoes will melt?
It is. It's so hot. But the weirdest thing about Dubai is how hot it is at night.
Yeah, that's what they're telling me. It's like obscene.
Yeah.
It's obscene. It's like 95.
Yeah, it's so weird, and it really is like an oven. It's like that's the feeling. It's like a kind of like a fan oven. But yeah, it's the night heat though. I've never experienced that, and when it's so hot at night. It doesn't even make sense to me.
How the hell did a city build up around that? Like, we've built cities here in like Phoenix, which is obscenely hot. We're like 100, 110, and even LA. There's parts of LA that gets to 100, 110 in heat waves. But you guys are consistent in Dubai. Like it was like a consistent like 115, 120 in the day.
Yeah.
Like your shoes melt.
Yeah.
Like your sneakers melt. Yeah.
But you can't go out during the day. I mean, it's like you're literally like you have to go from your air-conditioned building into another air-conditioned building, and that's how you live. So you can't really spend any time outside during the day at all. But then at night, it's really hot as well.
So there's no rest. There's just no rest at all. And I'm coming from Scotland, I'm assuming it's a bit different weather.
Exactly. So I'm just not built for that at all. So that's the real reason that we left Dubai. It wasn't because I wanted to. Yeah,
I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of here, man. This is too damn hot. I also come from a commercial background, doing commercials, and got my first start there. How did working in commercials prepare you to direct your first feature? I always like asking commercial directors that, because every commercial director has a different angle on that.
That's a good question. I think the main thing for me really, because the main thing for me was I think just dealing with clients and kind of managing the set and kind of, because I guess on set you've got, when I started directing commercials, I've got, it's like the agency side and then the client as well. And it's like, I think just managing all of those different people and kind of looking after them, that was probably at that stage for me, right, kind of going from film school into commercials, which was kind of then like, that experiencing a professional set and having people to sort of respond to and look after, like, outside of a student film context, was probably the biggest kind of learning curve for me. But actually, in terms of like my kind of style as a filmmaker, I never really got like the chance to do a commercial in the sense that I could really kind of explore my style as a filmmaker. It was almost like too separate from my kind of feature film making. Now, unfortunately,
exactly. Look, I know commercial worlds usually you got to deal with the clients and all that stuff. And the one thing that I think commercial worlds does so well is it teaches you the politics of a film, not only the film set, but just dealing with personalities and power and the hierarchy and stuff like that. Whereas most film directors who go right into features, they don't get that. Like a commercial director is really well trained to deal with studio executives and investors and producers and actors and egos and all of that stuff. That's why a lot of these young filmmakers get destroyed on their first feature, because they get just run over. Whereas a commercial director, it's got a little bit more armor. It got a couple more tools in the toolbox.
Yeah. You kind of learn how to be kind of diplomatic and to kind of deal with those different personalities and try and kind of do what you want to do, but also kind of make them, the client and people, feel part of it as well. And I think that's it's a really important.
It is an art form to be able to make someone else, a client, feel that it's their idea, so you can get the shot that you want to get. Exactly. It's an art form of being able to do that, and that's, I think, some of the best feature directors in history are able to maneuver in that way, especially early on in their careers, where someone like Fincher got run over in Alien, right? And he was really well done, but then he went into to Seven. He's like, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it my way. And he's done okay. He's done okay. He's done all right for himself. Mr. Fincher's done okay. But I just wanted to hear that, how your take on it was. Now, how did you get a movie like Limbo off the ground? Because Limbo, obviously, when the giant robot started attacking the city in your film, that obviously sold internationally much quicker. And when the superhero showed up and helped the migrants, it was fantastic.
So, and then the car chase scene as well. The car chase scene,
it's like Fast and Furious all over again. It was crazy. But in all honesty, a film like Limbo in today's marketplace, I'm fascinated in how you were able to not only put that project together. How did you get the financing for it? How did it get out to the world? So how did you just get it off the ground? Because it is a challenge. Tell everybody what the movie is about, but it is a challenging storyline, to say the least.
Yeah, to briefly say what it's about, conceptually it's about a group of asylum seekers that are sent to a remote Scottish island to wait for their asylum claims. But it really centers around Omar, who is a very talented young Syrian musician. And it's kind of him coming to terms with his circumstances of being a refugee. So it's not an easy sell, and it's, tonally it's the film, as well. I suppose that's kind of what made this sort of treatment of this subject matter maybe a little bit more interesting for financiers, in that it, had an interesting tone because it uses comedy, or it uses, absurdist humor in approaching the subject matter. But getting off the ground, I have to say, I think in our case, it was actually relatively straightforward, because we have a really good sort of system in the UK, a structure for making films at this level, and for kind of then, these sort of this kind of structure to support young filmmakers, or emerging filmmakers making their sort of first or second feature films. So in that sense, in my case, because I had the Pikadero, which was my low budget debut before Limbo, we were sort of kind of, Pikadero did really well in its context, so we were kind of on the radar of the industry and of that kind of core structure in the UK. With the BFI and Screen Scotland, who's the sort of Scottish government funding body, and then we've got Film 4 and BBC Films as well, which are the two kind of main broadcaster funders. And yeah, basically it was really, in my case, it was because of Pikadero, because I kind of, what Pikadero had was, it sort of had kind of established, or started to establish, kind of my sort of style and voice and vision as a filmmaker. So we got the initial funding for the screenplay from Creative Scotland, and then basically the sort of the industry were kind of ready to and kind of looking forward to reading the script because of Pikadero, and fortunately they liked the script, so it came on board, and then we had a commitment to production. So yeah,
that's really awesome, because in Europe you have those kind of and in Australia and in a couple other places, New Zealand, they have these kind of government systems that help artists. In America, they did nothing. There's nothing for us here. You got to scrap it up, So a film like Limbo, you would have literally had to knock on dentist's door and said, "Hey, do you want to invest in a movie?" kind of thing. So that's so wonderful that you're able to have that kind of support system in the UK and in Europe in general. I know a lot of countries have it out there, but that's great, because you need to get stories like this out into the world, and it's hard to get. It's very hard for an American filmmaker to get this made today. I mean, unless they have a lot of cachet or a lot of, festival. And even then, it's very difficult. So that's why I was fascinated. I'm like, how the hell did you get this out?
Yeah, because it's more common in the US as well to write scripts on spec, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's so it's kind of like that kind of early development isn't as common there. So there's not kind of a buy-in at an early stage. It's kind of like, you got to have a finished script that's really been kind of worked on a lot, and then
you need a finished script. You need stars attached. You need pre-sales already set up in distribution. You need to have a P&A budget already set up, and some sort of theatrical. Well, not now as much, but before you would need, do you have some sort of theatrical in place for a day and day? Distributors now want you to literally just do all the work for them.
Yeah.
As much as actually, we're just going to take 30% and not do anything. You're going to do all the hard work, and we're just going to put it out for you. And that's essentially. Oh, and you have to market it as well. And if you don't have an audience, it's even tougher. So what? What do you do? So I'm moving. I guess we're moving to Scotland. I guess we're just going to deal with rainy weather.
I was thinking of making my next film in the US, but now I'm kind of.
I think you should start it in Europe and maybe finish it out here. I don't know. Maybe cast it from here. I don't know. But now there's some scenes in the movie, the classroom scenes, which were completely absurd. They were just absurd in what was going on. Is that accurate? Is that what happens? And can you explain what happens in those kind of classroom scenes to the refugees?
I mean, they're based on reality. So I've definitely kind of heightened the absurdity of those scenes in the film, but they are based on real classes that take place in different European countries, but the ones that I came across were in Norway and Finland, and I came across a class in Germany that's how to that teaches asylum seekers how to flirt with German girls.
That should be a movie in itself.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so they were really based on real cultural assimilation classes.
And it's always essentially just the West's way of dealing with that, like the way, I mean, because you're coming from completely different culture, and it's just, I guess the West is trying to teach their way of doing. Is like, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing and that kind of goes back. It's kind of like Orientalism and kind of this idea, like the construction of the other, which is this sort of very kind of Western approach to the rest of the world, and is and it's connected with British colonialism and imperialism, and it just goes back so far that there's this kind of idea that just still exists, and that's really an example of that. And with these classes in Norway, obviously people are really patronized by this. It's incredibly patronizing, to have these sorts of classes, and they're compulsory in Norway in order to get asylum. And so it really is kind of very kind of inherently absurd.
It's a completely absurd, because I mean, some of these refugees might be like extremely well-educated people. They just happen to be refugees, and exactly. You're like, this is how you talk to a German girl if you want to pick her up and flirt, and you're just like, it was very absurd. I love that scene. By the way, I absolutely love that you have Friends in there. So there's a scene in the movie that the refugees are watching Friends, and then later that conversation about the break. was so brilliant, and that there was bootleg Friends seasons there. And the comment was like, what was it? The comment was like, can you get why couldn't we get a mattress? It was like, why couldn't you get a mattress? He goes, no, that's very high in demand. I got these Friends CDs. A coat. A coat. That's what it was. I'm sorry, it was a coat. Yeah. Why didn't we get a coat? Well, it's very high demand, but Friends CDs, DVDs everywhere. And it really is like, I've lived in the U.S. all my life, and it's like, we do truly, our number one export is our culture, is that dream. And when you see, refugees from Syria watching Friends and just like getting into it, like, because I don't see now, maybe a little bit more with Netflix, that you kind of see a little bit more international stuff coming into our feeds, but Americans are just so. It's all up. We have no reference point outside, where the rest of the world, that's all they have is like American, that American. Like we were talking about before we were talking like the comeback story about how we were, how before we weren't doing really well in the whole vaccine and the whole COVID thing, and now we're leading the world in vaccinations, and now we're like exporting out vaccines to India, and we're like it's
the Rocky story.
It's the Rocky Indy. It's America. That's what America's good at. We're good, but we sell that. I always say like America's great at selling the sizzle, but they're not really good at selling the steak. Because the American dream sounds fantastic, but the actual American dream is very, very difficult, if not impossible for some people, depending on where you come from. And I don't want to get into a larger conversation about immigration, because that's a whole other podcast for another day. But yeah, I just found that very fascinating that you put that in there. And what was it? Why did you pick Friends? I'm just out of curiosity. And how did you get the rights to Friends? How did you get the rights to Friends? That's another question.
Well, that's another story. Yeah, I mean, wow. No, I mean, like in terms of Friends being written into the script, it was actually something that was just very natural to me to do, because it's something, it's a series that is global. You go anywhere in the world and everyone has watched Friends. I lived in Syria, and people watching Friends, they sell a lot of bootleg DVDs in Syria as well, and you just see all of the seasons lined up outside shops and everywhere in the world. I mean, I remember being in China as well, and meeting someone that their English name was Monica, because of Friends. So it's So it's so kind of global and universal and also cross-generational. That's the other really interesting thing about Friends, because I've got 16-year-old 18-year-old cousins, and they've seen all of Friends. They're obsessed with Friends.
I have 9-year-olds.
So
I have 9-year-olds, and the other day Jennifer Aniston happened to just come on the screen for like some show or something, and she's like, "Daddy, isn't that Rachel from Friends?" And my wife and I just look at each other like, maybe we've gone too far. Maybe we shouldn't have let them watch all those Friends episodes. But they loved it. Yeah. They love Friends. Like, even though it's a little inappropriate sometimes, but like, it's
still going strong.
How did you get the rights? I have to ask. How did you get the rights?
We got the rights. So yeah, it was actually, so we were told that it would be impossible, essentially.
Right.
And then Irune, who's the producer, she's also my wife, and she was put in touch with someone who knew David Schwimmer, and then she got in touch with David Schwimmer. I think I wrote a letter to David Schwimmer. Then Irune sent it on to him, and then he basically read the script, and he loved the script, and he basically said that he wanted to help us out. And he told us that basically we could have scenes with him in it, because he could give the rights, like he could help get the rights to the scenes with him in it, but we wouldn't be able to get any of the scenes with any of the other characters, right? So that was it. So we were like, great. So we'll use we'll use Ross scenes in Friends, and then basically. Yeah, he was actually really instrumental. We wouldn't have been able to do it without. It was quite touch and go. I think it was actually quite difficult even for him at points to kind of get past Warner Bros. But he kind of just like fought the battle for us, and he ended up getting us the rights. So it was incredible. And then we sent him a bottle of Pacharan, which is a kind of Basque liqueur.
As you should.
Yeah, as we should. And so we also, we don't actually know if he's seen the film yet or not. We want him to see the film. We hope he's seen it, but
you need to send a link.
I think we have, but like, he's David Schwimmer, so like
he's busy.
He's busy, so
he's busy.
Yeah.
I get it. That's a fascinating story, because just being here in LA, I know that's impossible. Like, you can't get that's why I was so shocked at a kind of like indie film from Europe.
Yeah.
Got a clip of Friends. I'm like,
yeah.
And I'm like, how the hell did they clear that? Because I mean, the budget to clear that must be the budget of the film. Like, how? Because I know how difficult that is, but now that makes sense. And people listening, like, when you said David Schwimmer, I'm like, and like, David has no control over any of that. So like, I'm like, I when you said that, I was like, he can't, like, he must have just started pulling favors. He started making phone calls and pulling people, because he has the cast has no power over any of that. They're just the cast, but they have influence. But he did it. That's amazing. That's a great story.
And we got a good price on the rights as well, I think. So I think David Schwimmer also got us a discount.
Because it's I mean, I can't even comprehend. Let's just put it this way. I don't think I've seen a clip of Friends anywhere else other than Friends. Like, I haven't seen it in popular culture in other shows, unless it's a Warner Brothers project, and even then, I'm sure it's even an issue. But so that's why I was so shocked. So that's a great story. So everybody knows, just contact David Schwimmer and write a really good script, write a letter, and it'll all work out at the end. So one thing I found really interesting about your directing style, it is a fairly unique visual style. It kind of calls back to Wes Anderson a little bit, in the way you frame the shots. Are so like beautiful in the quirky colors and the color palette you use, the wallpapers and stuff. One question I have to ask is, what lens do you use for those internal bedroom shots? Because now we're going to get into like geek film stuff, because it's wide, but it doesn't fisheye, so it's fairly wide. So I just love to know what that is.
Yeah, it was 16 mil.
It was a 16 mil. Was it Zeiss or Cook?
Yeah,
Cook.
16 mil Zeiss.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Standard, 60 mil Zeiss standard primes.
Standard primes. Not super speeds? Standard prime?
No. They were standard
Oh,
primes.
they were standard. Nice.
Yeah. So actually, my first film, Pikadero, we shot on super speeds, but this was with standard primes.
If you ever want to get into, if you ever, okay, sorry guys, we're gonna go off on a filmmaker geek thing here. If you ever really want to like go all in on the wide, get a Canoptic 9.8.
Oh wow!
The Canoptic 9.8 is Stanley Kubrick's lens. He used for Barry Lyndon.
I'm without.
Huh?
No
fisheye.
Have a fisheye, right? It's like, yeah.
So the shot in, sorry guys, we're film geeking out here. So the shot in Clockwork Orange, where they knock on the door right before the rape scene, and there's that wide shot that he's just crossing to the library. That was the Canoptic.
Nice.
The maze scene in The Shining, all the Canoptic. The following the kid on the Canoptic, yeah. So it's a super wide. The lens. I have one, but I have the 16 millimeter version of it, which is oh god, what is it? I forgot the millimeter of it. It's a 5.6. So I have a 5.6 in the 16 version of it. And I connect it to my Blackmagic, my Blackmagic pocket camera, the 1080p one. Oh, it's gorgeous. I shot it on my last feature. I shot with it like that. And everyone was just like, what is going on? It's so crystal clear. So it helps to have a lot of light with that lens. But with the 9.8 is gorgeous. So if you ever really want to kind of talk to your DP about it and just like
9.8.
9.8 Canoptic. It's a specialized.
Canoptic.
Yeah, it's a special. They don't make it anymore. So it's vintage. But if you like want to go all in, you really want to get that. It's the
next film. That's the one.
It's the Kubrick lens, bro. It's the Kubrick lens. I mean, it's Stanley. Come on. It's a French lens, if I'm not mistaken, and they made a handful of them, but they're around. You can rent them. I mean, here in LA, they're around in LA, but even in Europe, I know they're around. So definitely check it out. Anyway, guys, I'm sorry we went on a geek film geek tangent here. Sorry, the gear porn. This was a little bit of a gear porn, so I apologize. And by the way, what did you shoot this on? What camera was it? Out of curiosity, it looked great.
We shot it on Alexa.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because it has a nice soft image to it. It's very very pleasant edges. Yeah. It's not like hard. Yeah. It's not hard edge.
No. Like that's and that's the thing. I love I'd love to shoot on film if I'm not if I can't shoot on film, then for me it's got to be Alexa.
Yeah, and you've shot you shot film before, so you've shot feature. Would you shoot your last feature on feature?
No. That was also Alexa.
But you shot film on commercials.
I shot film in film school. That's the only chance that I ever had, that I've ever had to shoot film. And actually, it was 16 mil. I've never shot 35 mil film.
Oh man! I mean, you're a bit younger than me then, apparently, because.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I'm kind of.
I've shot when I was commercials. I shot 35, shot 16. So I have my Super 8 right next to me, and we shoot Super 8 all the time and get it transferred to 6.5K, so you can really it's gore. Oh yeah. Film is great, and everyone listening, there's this thing about film. It's kind of like going back to the video store. Nostalgia. I was like, oh man, wasn't the video stores great? But I'm not sure if I would want to go and rent a movie and go through that whole process. It's just so much more convenient to just stream it or put in a Blu-ray or something along those lines. Film has for me that kind of unless you're Chris Nolan, you've got all the money in the world and all the resources in the world. Film's great, and if a specific kind of project, then film is awesome. But there's something for me. The smell of the can, the smell of the celluloid. I just went back and retransferred all my old 35 I had lying around for like 20 years to retransfer it, to rescan it at 4K because I wanted to go back and like recolor grade it and then I put it up on the monitor and I would see every little bit of dirt that went through every little I'm like, oh my God, it looks awesome.
Nice.
So there's things that you can do on film that you just can't do in the Alexa, but 95% of the time, the image is fine. But if you ever want to play, it's awesome.
And have you? When was the last time you shot film? Was it
Oh, I haven't shot film.
like since kind of digital took over? Have you had the chance to go
Super
back
8,
to film? Or
Super 8 is the only thing I've shot. I've shot a lot of Super 8 since then, which still has that film, definitely has that film texture, and I did getting it transferred here in LA at 6.5. So you get, I mean, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. I mean, some of the, if you shoot the proper stock, oh my God, you can get Super 8 to look gorgeous. Really, really nice stuff. But I haven't shot 35. 25 years probably. I haven't shot. Yeah, but yeah. So I'm not sure when I would shoot it again. Like I don't know if I would shoot a feature unless it was. I just need a lot of resources.
You had Chris Nolan's budget.
I mean, yeah, you want to shoot IMAX, brother? That's great, Chris, for you, man. I love it. Yeah, JJ, you want to shoot Star Wars, and great, but for the rest of us on an indie budget, don't really know. And also, it's hard to find a DP nowadays that knows how to shoot it on film anymore.
Yeah. It's true. And and the conditions as well. It depends on the film. Like if it, like we shot on an actual remote Scottish island, so there was just like far too many variables. So it just would have been a nightmare. It wouldn't have worked.
Finding camera assists who know how to deal with film, how to load a film mag, how to deal with film, finding the lab. I mean, you're in Scotland, so I'm assuming the film lab is not right around the corner either, so you're going to have to ship, get it transferred, upload dailies. Like, it would have been an insane process for you. Here in LA, it's even a little bit easier. But even here, it's still like, it's money, it's cost, it's everything. But aesthetically, man, there's things you could do with film that you just can't do digitally, aesthetically. One of my great buddies, he was a DP on American Horror Story, which shoots completely on film. And they shot reversal, they shot black and white, they shot Super 8. They took the film negative, threw it in a bathtub, scratched it up with sand, ran it through the scanner again because they wanted that kind of the DP Michael, I forgot his last name. He wanted the creator went to the DP and said, "Hey, I want this scene to look like Nazi Germany porn, a Nazi Germany porn film." And you're like, what? So that's what they got. And it's like, and the DP was like looking through the computer, doing research. He's like, I hope no one is looking at my search right now, because Jesus, if someone's watching me, I get a knock on the door any minute.
CIA knocked down his door. Like,
what are you doing? Anyway, sorry for that tangent, guys. We'll get back into it. But talking about the visual style, what's your influences? Like, I mean, I'm assuming Wes Anderson had a little bit to do it, or am I off kilter there? Because it has a little bit of that vibe.
Not so much. I mean, the main influences for me actually kind of go back to that time where I was studying Middle Eastern cinema, and there were two that came up in quite quick succession, which were two films. One called The Time That Remains by Elia Suleiman, the Palestinian director, and another film called The Band's Visit by Erin Colleran. And those were the two films that kind of made me want to be a film director. And they had, and I guess, you could relate the style of those films as well to Wes Anderson. And I suppose that there's a kind of, I wouldn't call it a movement, but sort of a group of filmmakers that have similar sensibilities, that kind of root back to Yasujiro Ozu and, I guess Jim Jarmusch is part of that, and Aki Kaurismäki and Roy Andersson, Swedish director. And once I kind of started to sort of find these directors, I suppose I would look for more that were like that. I think Fernando Mbeki, the Mexican director, as well. And that kind of, I suppose, formed my sort of base of kind of influence in sort of stylistic elements. But then, I suppose since then, I kind of also, I suppose, became more influenced by, people like P.T. Anderson and
right.
Nuri Bilge Ceylan, the Turkish director, and Lynn Ramsey as well.
Yeah.
Scottish director.
What I loved about it is that it has that kind of like master shot, and you let the actors do what they need to do, and then the movements of it. But the framing is so beautiful. Like every shot is like a painting. Like that's a beautiful way of looking at it. It's a wonderful file, and it works really well with Limbo. Like the absurdity of some of the stuff needs to be. You don't need to cut all around. Just like let that thing sit.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is that a lot of the humor is coming from the style of filmmaking. So it's coming from the composition. It's coming from the lens choice. It's like using that wide lens on a close-up creates an element of absurdity and humor in the way that it sort of lenses the faces, and using color, as you say, kind of creates that sort of playful feel. So it's actually kind of like really imbuing the film with this sort of undertone of humor, but then playing things very straight. And then that sort of allows that kind of tonal balance as well to sort of go from that humor and absurdity and then kind of pivot into the more dramatic and serious tones of the film.
Now, you had some amazing performances in your film. How do you have any advice on working with actors and getting the performances you're looking for?
I think, one of the things that's really important for me is the rehearsal period, and having time for that. And that's kind of not only to sort of go through the scenes but it's really to sort of spend that time exploring the characters with the actors, and kind of having those conversations where you're kind of going into depth about the characters and going into depth about the scenes, but also just building the relationship with the actors, as a kind of, and that ultimately that's, for me, is like, if you kind of build a relationship of sort of trust, and where you can sort of have this sort of open collaboration, then it just kind of makes everything so much easier. So I think that was one of the things that was really key in Limbo, was that, we had a really good team, and I had a really good relationship with the actors. So it kind of almost, it felt like being on set with friends, and you're sort of building, and I also, very sort of clear with kind of my vision for the film, but it's like sharing that vision, and then we're kind of working towards the same vision. So we're not kind of pulling in different directions. And even if there is questions and there's sort of a difference of opinion, that relationship is there. So we can have a very kind of, very open and normal, conversation about these things. So I think that's kind of one, kind of a major part of it, is really just like anything. It's like any kind of relationship, and any working relationship, is to kind of have sort of communication and trust and openness.
Do you feel that actors, I found this to be true. I'd love to hear what you think, that actors need to feel safe. They need to be in a safe environment where they can perform. If they don't feel safe, or if they don't feel that the director has their back, that is when you start getting the grind or the fight back or the pushback.
Exactly.
They become protective of themselves. Like, well, if this guy or gal is not going to protect me, I'm going to protect myself because I'm on the screen. So is that fair?
No, 100%. And that's the thing, because actors are putting themselves into a very vulnerable position. And I think that's why it's kind of, that you want to create a safe environment for them to do their work, and also value them. Like I think that's the other thing that can happen, is that kind of actors like sometimes can feel undervalued, and I think you do get sort of different directing styles, and maybe you get directors that are more comfortable dealing with the camera than dealing with the actors, for example.
Right.
But and it's like, I think that's the thing, is that the actors are so important. It's like they are everything. It's like they it's like, it doesn't. It's like, so, and I think that they need, or needs maybe the wrong word, but it helps if they feel that you value them, that you value and see how important they are and how instrumental their craft is to creating a good film. To create, and that's it, because it is a craft, it's a skill, it's as much as, a cinematographer, or the other elements. And I think that often actors kind of, can be treated as almost as if it's like an afterthought. It's like, okay, so we've set everything up, we've done everything now, okay, go and do the,
dance monkey, dance
yeah,
monkey,
exactly,
dance monkey,
yeah,
and
deliver the lines. You
deliver the lines the way I said it in one take, and we're done. Okay, because you're not really that important. You're much that vase in the background is much more important than you are, and that's when problems occur without questions. No, I've a lot of times. Look, in our industry, especially in the indie film world, what is sold to us by the companies and by marketing is all about the gear and the 15K and the 30K and the new lenses and the old lenses and the this and that. And, what they talk about a lot of times when they talk about someone like Kubrick is what like you and I just geeked out a bit about like, oh, he used the Canoptic 9.8 and he got this shot, or what was the lens that he used for HAL in 2001? And like, that's all cool and part of the process. But no one, and that's sexy. That's super sexy. That's like the sexy part. No one's like, we got to get into the weeds and rehearse with this actor and really build a character. Like, that's not marketed as much. That's not talked about as much. And most filmmakers lack in that creation of vibrant characters with the actors as a team. And that's what jumps off on Limbo. Like, all those actors, you could just tell are having a great time. And there's a comfortability in what they're doing. They feel very comfortable. I could see that in the screen. They're going out for it. They're going for it because they feel protected. And that's something that everyone listening really should understand, that I don't care if you're shooting with your iPhone, man. It's all about what's in front of that lens, man. And the actors are they're the tools, man. They're the things that are going to bring your story to life. Not the lens, not the camera, not the color grading, not the giant robot that's going to kill the giant lizard. Like, that's nice. That's nice. And a lot of times those movies, like, look, I'll call it out, like Godzilla versus King Kong. I loved it. It was super fun. But I'm not thinking a whole lot about it. I'm like, my wife's like, why do you want to watch? I'm like, because I want to watch Godzilla fight King Kong for 3 or 4 scenes. Like, that's essentially what I'm watching it for. I'm not watching it for a deep plot, as long as you're going into it with that. So there's places for those kind of movies. But for this kind, I mean, filmmakers really need to really connect with that. You agree?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's, it really, and it's also even just like simple things make a difference as well. It's like even just going up and speaking to going up close and having an intimate conversation with the actors on set, rather than yelling your lines to them or telling your first AD to deliver notes to your so it's like every single time, go and speak to the actors, go and have that, and because that's the partnership and the teamwork that makes a good film. So nice.
No question. The guys who sit behind in Video Village, just like, hey, I need you to say this line again. Oh, but let's put a little bit more stank on it. Like, it's like, like, what? And you see the actor. I've seen it. I've been on set with directors like that, and you see the actor like, what did he say? What's going on? And then they'll stop the whole thing, and you can start seeing the frustration, and that's when the whole thing starts coming crashing down, man. Now, your film has been nominated for a couple of BAFTA awards, man. So I have to ask you, I'm assuming these are your first awards nominations. How did that feel? Because that's essentially, for everyone listening, the BAFTA is the Oscars of Great Britain. So how did that feel?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I have to say, like, it's incredible because it's something that you sort of dream of, and like, when you start making films and you kind of dream of getting BAFTA nominations and that kind of thing. But at the same time, it's been such a weird year with the pandemic. So it's almost like there's part of it that kind of doesn't feel real because, in a normal world, the ceremony, it's like the Oscars. There's a huge ceremony. It's at the Royal Albert Hall. Like, it's, the big red carpet and the after party and like all of these things, a big meal beforehand. None of that happened, So it's like, so it's getting the nominations, and then were just kind of on Zoom, like, watching the ceremony, and then it kind of like dressed up at home and
right. It's so weird. It's so weird.
And it's just, and then it kind of passes, and I think that it's been a kind of a year of that a little bit in general, because the first sort of big bit of success that we got was when we got the Cannes selection, and that was cancelled, and so we just kind of got the Cannes label, and then since then it's just like that with every, it's like we got into Toronto for the premiere, but we weren't in Toronto. We couldn't travel to Toronto. Again, it's like a big deal to, have the film premiering there. But, so by the time the BAFTAs came around, it's just this very odd thing where you sort of, obviously it's amazing and you kind of really value that. But at the same time, it's kind of bittersweet, and it doesn't feel fully real. I don't know if ever will, or if they'll invite us next year, when they have the actual ceremony, or I don't know, it's kind of,
it's a weird time for everybody. I mean, I know people who won, that are winning the Oscars that just happened a little while ago.
Yeah.
Like they just like you don't really, it's not the thing. Like I know filmmakers who got into South by Southwest, which was a huge deal, and then they canceled it. And you're just like, what? I've been waiting all my life to get into this, and they cancel it. I mean, we get the moniker, we get but we can't fly there, we can't really screen there. The distributors aren't going to be looking there, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty mind blowing, honestly. It's pretty mind blowing. But look, you still got accepted into Cannes. You still got accepted into Toronto. You got some BAFTA awards. When everyone 20 years from now looks back, that's all they'll see. They won't know that you didn't go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I won't have the memories, but I'll have it on my IMDb page.
You'll have it on, and really, truly, that's really all that matters. Not life experiences. It's all about the credits and the awards on the IMDb page. That's really all that matters. Now, I wanted to ask you, what do you hope that this film does in the world? Because it is touching and talking about a very serious issue. I feel, about refugees coming into other countries. It's happening in our country very famously, happening now in our country, and it's happening all over the world. But I feel that it's only going to get worse. I feel that with global warming and environmental things, there's going to be millions, if not possibly billions, of refugees in hopefully many years away from us as possible. But look, things are getting crazy. So what do you hope that this film does as far as putting a spotlight on that issue?
I mean, one of the reasons that I was sort of kind of drawn to making a film about this subject matter was that, I was really struck by kind of what I found was a sort of process of dehumanization that we were kind of experiencing of refugees. And that was sort of through the media or different kind of depictions where you had this kind of the refugees were treated as kind of numbers and statistics, and you had kind of demonizing on the right-wing media, and you had the pitying of refugees as well, and both of these things were dehumanizing. And so what I kind of really want from this film, it's obviously you have a whole lot of creative desires as a filmmaker and the things that you kind of want to achieve, because in the end, you're making a film. It's something that's creative and that's how has my voice behind it as a filmmaker. But it is also to spotlight this issue, and I think that it is a different kind of way of looking at this subject matter, and it's a sort of different access point, and really kind of what I would like is for people to go to the cinema or wherever they watch the film and spend an hour and 40 minutes with these people on screen and look up to these people on screen, to these characters on screen, and feel close to them and feel like you know them and that you find parts of yourself in them. And then come away from the film and carry these characters around in you for a while afterwards. And I think, that's kind of that's what I would like, because in general it's otherwise, refugees are just kind of numbers, statistics, that it's kind of sensationalized snapshots. But they're real people that are just people. They're just human beings like us that we can relate to, and hopefully people kind of take that away from the film.
That's amazing. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to put this film out into the world in the way you did it, with a little humor to, little honey, as opposed to vinegar on the on the film. Maybe make it go down a little bit smoother. Now I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I ask all my guests. What advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into the business today?
Good question. Wow, good question. I think that, I'll kind of speak specifically about being a writer, director. And I think that one of, it's not, it's not a sort of great, so maybe it's not the most hopeful answer. But what I always say is that basically you just have, you have to just write. You have to write the screenplay. And there's so many ways to procrastinate, and so many ways to kind of go on these sort of endless meetings of kind of promises and sort of hope and kind of labs and, script labs and all of these things. And I think that it gets to a point where all of this is kind of just like peripheral sort of just other ways to procrastinate, that in the end, if you have something inside of you where you want to write a screenplay and you want to make a film, really all you can do is write the screenplay. You've got to put yourself in the chair, sit down and put the hours in, and that's it. Spend the time in the saddle and write the screenplay. And unfortunately, that really is the answer. That's the first thing that you can do to break into the film. If you want to be a writer director, is just write the screenplay, and that's it. There is no other. That's all. You need the product.
Write as much of it as you can, as much as you can, as many as you can.
And it's painful. That's the other thing as well. It's not easy. So when it gets really hard, and you want to give up on the screenplay, it's meant to feel like that. It's meant to be really difficult. You don't get anything for free. That's the thing. It's to work in the film industry and kind of make money from making films. It's a very privileged position to be in. So you don't get that for free. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of hours, and in the end you kind of just gotta put the time in, and it's going to be difficult and it's going to be painful, and you're going to want to give up, and you just kind of have to sort of push through it and keep going and keep going.
You obviously are not going to be the marketing wing of the filmmaking dream, obviously. So this is not the way we pitch the deal. It's horrible branding. What it is all you got to do is just show up to Hollywood, and they just give you money. That's what's been sold to us here in the States for the longest time, and it seems to be working out. Truer words have never been said, sir, in regards to our process and what we do. And it is a very, very difficult process, and that's what I try to do with the show, is to let everybody know. Like I always tell people, you're going to get, no matter who you are, no matter how big you are, what stage in the career you are at, you could be Steven Spielberg, you could be that film student, you're going to get punched in the face. You're going to get punched in the face in one way, shape, or form. Something's going to happen. You're going to get punched in the face. The problem is that most filmmakers don't even know that there's punches involved. And when they get the first one, they're out. And they're knocked out cold, and they don't come back out after it. So I'm trying to prepare them to let them know, look, you're going to get punched. Now learn how to take the punch and keep going forward. Keep taking the punches and keep going forward. And then eventually, when you get a little older, you learn how to duck a little bit. You learn how to weave. And occasionally, you'll learn not to even be where the punch is being thrown at all. You're not even in the same room. So occasionally, you'll do that. But no matter who you are, you're going to get punched. So that's great advice.
Pretty good.
Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Oh, I think that, the lesson that I'm still learning is how to switch off. That's the lesson, that's the lesson that I really want to learn, like how to kind of how to switch off, how to relax, how to kind of That's difficult. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, it's a disease. I mean, we're inflicted with a disease. It's called filmmaking. It's once you get the bug, you can't get rid of it. It can go dormant for decades, but it always comes back. It's like this craziness. I still remember talking to filmmakers when the pandemic hit. First things that go through their mind, like, how are we going to shoot a movie? I'm like, dude, the world is coming to an end, and you're talking about shooting a movie. This is the insanity of filmmakers. Like, that's how we think. It is. It took me a long time, by the way, to learn that lesson. To be able to shut it off. It was my wife to help me with that.
Yeah.
Because if it was me, I would have been on, and I was 18 hours a day, all day, every day, working on something online, working. It was just like this obsession that just kept going.
Yeah. And then when you're not working, it's like putting the pressure on yourself, like feeling that you should be working or that you can be doing more, if you're not kind of breaking through with your screenplay or whatever, like that. You then, you're putting that pressure on yourself, and you're feeling, so it's that's a kind that I'm still kind of figuring that out, like how to do that. I figured I think video games help.
You're talking like an addict. Did you hear the words that are coming out of your mouth? You sound like an addict. You're like, when I get the itches, when I get this, I gotta, video games help. That term is like, that means there's a problem. It's so wonderful. Like, occasionally walks. I do a walk every once in a while just to kind of, it's like, it's so funny, but it is an affliction that we have been blessed and cursed with all at the same time. And I know that feeling that you're talking about where you're like, I should be writing something. I should be watching a movie and analyzing it. I should be figuring out, I should be making a phone call. I should be trying to do something. I should be trying to get a project off the ground. That kind of energy is something that happens, especially when you haven't broken through, especially when you're still hustling and trying to get your career off the ground. It is an affliction. It really is. I finally found the way to chillax about that to a point where now I'm just very mellow about it. And that's also age, dude. It's just age. It's just time, man. As you get older, you just start figuring out things that are more important in your life and things that interested you in your 20s and 30s. When you get in your 40s, you get family. Things just start to shift a little bit, So if you're in your 20s, enjoy it because it goes quick. It goes quick. And last question, 3 of your favorite films of all time.
Oh, 3 of all time. Oh, wow. I hate these questions.
3 that come to mind right now.
Okay, so I'm gonna say those 2 films that I said earlier on, because those were the 2 films that kind of made me want to make films. So The Time That Remains by Elia Suleiman, and The Band's Visit by Aaron Colleran. And then I'm gonna say, what am I gonna say? Okay, I'm not gonna say Greatest of All, but I'm gonna say a film that I kind of go back to. It's actually probably the first screenplay that I ever read. It's actually Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, I love Good Will Hunting, man.
I'm going to say that. That was, it was the first script that I read that I kind of saw the film and I was like, I'm going to read the script. I think when I was just kind of like,
Did you buy it? Did you buy the
I bought
book?
it.
The book, because it was selling the script. They sell the book script of that. They had Pulp Fiction as well. So they had Pulp Fiction's book as well. There was a handful of those back in the 90s that you could buy them like that. Yeah. Nice. That was a good script. That was a great script. That scene with Robin Williams on the bench. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just he won the Oscar in that scene.
So the one with Minnie Driver as well. I mean,
that was great.
Brings me to tears every time. Like really. I'm a crier. I cry at films all the time. I don't know.
At the ending, like I gotta go see About a Girl. Like it's just like so brilliant, so well put together. But Ben, man, thank you so much for being on the show, bro. It has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you again so much for making Limbo and putting it out into the world. And I hope it changes the conversation a bit. I hope it changes people's perception a little bit about that problem with refugees. And it's a problem that's not going to go away anytime in the near future. So hopefully you've done some good in the world as a filmmaker. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Pleasure talking to you. Thanks for having me.